Hey folks, excuse me. So I've been wanting to speak about MBTI, but I also don't want to teach about MBTI. So I'm kind of in this weird spot. So I'm just going to try to talk about it off the top of my head. I've been researching it and looking into it very deeply. And I don't know why, but I had so much trouble getting it, for it to click in my mind. The judgment functions were a bit easier, but the perceiving functions and how, introverted sensing and extroverted intuition complement one another, and also how, introverted intuition and extroverted sensing, how they complement one another, and trying to put myself in someone's shoes who uses these functions and understanding the implications of that. I'm just trying to get a thorough understanding of it, and I'm trying. But yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about what it's like for me, my experience of being an INFJ and having the functions that I have. Well, with introverted intuition and extroverted feeling, it's kind of like you get all of these behavior patterns in your mind, because that's what your mind is retaining. Like everything you see, every negative reaction, positive reaction, everything you're seeing with people and how people are affecting one another, that kind of just stays in your head. And so that gives you kind of an overview of what kind of problems are consistently facing humanity on an emotional level. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's hard to, we have FE as our second function, extroverted feeling, and I think a big reason for that is that we know, or at least we think we know, that the reaction we're going to get when we do or say something from that person, from having observed them for a long time and seen their behavior patterns, or if you don't know them that well, you just know the overall universal behavior patterns that you've come across in your life, in your culture. And so that kind of adds up. And so it's really hard to be authentic, more FI type authenticity, which is not in our four functions, because we know that if we just kind of say and do whatever we want and whatever we feel, there's going to be a lot more conflict in our lives. So at least for me, I choose not to express myself in a completely authentic way, because I want to avoid that conflict that I know from observing people's behavior patterns that would inevitably come my way. So that's one thing that I experience. And I don't know. I just kind of turn the camera on and see what comes out. But I was very focused on. I try to be a very logical person, and I know that that's my tertiary function, introverted thinking. And I try to be a very logical person, and have reasons, etc., for my thoughts. And I think the only reason why I didn't avoid extroverted feeling was because of my very social job that I had for a very long time, and that kind of forced me to exercise that extroverted feeling muscle, because all the time I was going and socializing and learning how to small talk, learning how to socialize like like a regular person, and not just be this kind of intense, deep weirdo type person. That's how I was when I first started working there. And I'd be like, I would I would ask people about, like, when before I really learned how to socialize in a more normal way, I would kind of ask people about the things that they were hiding, the things that I could see in them that they were hiding from everybody, but they weren't really hiding it from me because I could recognize it. Like, one thing that I notice is these kind of very small micro expressions in the eyes, and there's very subtle expressions that people have, and those can be very revealing about what a person is really feeling rather than what they're pretending to feel. And so sometimes, I used to be more observant than I am now because I learned how to just, bullshit with people. But when I was just observing and watching, I would just be staring at their micro expressions and their, I would have my views on what they may be feeling, and maybe I would ask them a question or something, and it would come off as probably a bit intrusive because I didn't know how to small talk at that time. You know what I'm saying? So I had to learn how to small talk, and it's a very useful skill. I recommend all introverts learn how to small talk, even though it's a pain in the butt to learn. It takes a lot of years, and you're gonna look like a weirdo for a long time. But I learned it eventually, And but yeah, it's kind of hard to be socially engaged with people and also be observant at the same time. It's usually easier to do one or the other, for me at least. I mean, you always see it. You always see the subtleties, but you don't see them as well when you're trying to just BS with people. But yeah, so another thing that I notice is internally, I'm always, because of the introverted thinking, I try to be very logical internally, and I'm not really concerned. I've been researching about FI and how they're concerned with moral principles and what works for them and how they feel, and their inner morality that they have, that they live by. And for me, it's funny because I don't even really think in terms of what are my principles. It doesn't even occur to me. When I'm thinking, I'm always thinking about, deep inner truths. Like deep inner, what is the truth about, maybe some issues that I'm facing or something. For me, a long time I was searching for peace. So how do trying to solve that puzzle of finding peace, and I did. Praise God for that. But it's always finding solving those puzzles. Always thinking in terms of, like logic, and I'm not even thinking about what do is what I'm doing in alignment with my morals. It's like that kind of thought, it just doesn't even occur to me. It's more about inner truth. And with the extroverted feeling, it's not having to do with me, it's having to do with other people. It's having to do with what they're feeling, and like a lot of times when I'm interacting with people, I'm trying to make them happy. I know people very well, so and the people, especially the people that I'm around a lot, so usually I will say things that I know will make them happy, because I know what kind of things they respond to with, positive emotion, with positive outbursts. So I give them these things because I want them to be happy, and so, but it's coming from a more logical place, An FI user might just be in tune with their own emotions and really not react in a way that is pleasing to others, because they're wanting to be authentic, they're wanting to be sincere. And it's funny because if you look at a lot of my past videos, I'm kind of, in a lot of my videos, it seems like I'm expressing that I want to basically be more like the FI users, the introverted feeling users, rather than the extroverted feeling user. And you see a lot of these, I'm feeling like I'm insincere and blah 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 and things like that, and having this conflict of wanting to be sincere but also wanting to know it, well, not wanting to, but knowing what makes people happy and what makes people angry or sad, or at least having a very educated guess on it. So, I wouldn't punch myself in the face, right? Because I know that it would hurt. So in the same way, I'm not going to say something or do something that would get somebody to lash out at me. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's authentic or not. So yeah, these are just some random thoughts, and I think maybe I'll make some MBTI videos on just some random thoughts rather than trying to teach, because I'm really not qualified to teach. But I am learning. I'm learning the functions and everything, and I think I have a fairly good grasp now. It's just a matter of fully getting it, and maybe one day. All right, see ya.